Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that one of the decks I've been super excited about with the release of Aether Revolt is the Puresteel Paladin decks in Modern. And I'm apparently not the only person excited about this deck because we actually have a real list that's been having real success. This is a deck I'm calling Sram'O's, and it's built by Zach Elsick. Recently took it to a top 8 finish in a SCG Modern IQ. So congrats to Zach, who, if you're not familiar with Zach, is the original creator of Lantern Control, a great brewer, so congrats to him on a good finish and a super sweet deck. So a quick reminder before we break it all down, if you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Sram'O's is kind of a new take on an old deck. Puresteel Paladin decks have been around on the fringe of Modern for a long time. I played these decks before. I love these decks. They're just so unique and so fun. The thing is, the deck is absurd when it has a Puresteel Paladin. Very, very, very powerful, can win very quickly, just does crazy things on turn 2. On the other hand, if it doesn't have a Puresteel Paladin, it is the worst deck you can imagine. It is so incredibly bad, or if your Puresteel Paladin just immediately dies, it's so bad, you only have 3 more in your deck, you can't find them, you're playing all these just horrible, unbelievably bad cards. Well, that's the main problem with the deck, is great when you have a Puresteel Paladin, horrible when you don't have a Puresteel Paladin. The big news is, now that we have Sram Senior Edificer, we essentially have 8 Puresteel Paladins. So the key thing with this is these are cards that draw whenever an equipment enters the battlefield. They're both only 2 mana, and they essentially let this deck combo off and win with Storm on turn 2. So now that we have 8 Puresteel Paladins, including the 4 Srams, the odds that we have one on turn 2 are much, much higher, and the odds that if something goes wrong and our opponent can kill it, that we find another one are also much higher. So the deck goes from very powerful but inconsistent to very consistent and very powerful. So what's our plan for winning with Sram and Puresteel Paladin? Well, it's pretty simple. We play our Puresteel Paladin / Sram on turn 2, and then we just start casting 0 mana equipment. So these cards are horrible. They are amazingly bad. The text on them literally does not matter. None of these cards have any text. If they were 0 mana artifact equipment, no, you couldn't equip it. They have no text on them. They do the same thing. The idea is you play these, and every time you play one, you're drawing a card. If you happen to go off a little later and you have a Sram and a Puresteel Paladin, you're drawing 2 cards. You're drawing through your deck. So that's what this deck is. It is almost exclusively 0 mana equipment. So you just keep casting them. We have 11 here. Then we have a whole nother slide full of them with 10 more. So that's 21. So this essentially lets us to draw our entire deck on turn 2. We get our Puresteel Paladin Sram down, just cast all these cards. We're drawing. Like I said, the text on these doesn't matter. It's purely 0 mana, draw a card. So then as we draw through our entire deck, we're going to find our Mox Opals. And our Mox Opals, since we have all these equipment, are going to be able to tap for mana. We don't need much additional mana to win the game because we have those 21 0 mana equipment. We really need 2, maybe 3 mana to win the game. It doesn't take much at all. So as we draw through our deck, we Mox Opal, play the Mox Opal, tap the Mox Opal, float a mana, keep drawing cards, and then eventually what we're going to do is use Retract to bounce everything back to our hand. So this gets back all our 0 mana equipment, all of our Mox Opals. It only hits artifacts, so our Sram or our Puresteel Paladin stays out. Then we repeat the process, play everything out again. We get to play Mox Opal again, tap it for mana again. Noxious Revival also allows us to make an additional mana. So we're comboing off, we Mox Opal, tap it for mana, Mox Opal, Legend Rule a Mox Opal, tap the untapped one for mana. Noxious Revival can put a Mox Opal back on our deck. Next time we cast a 0 mana equipment, we draw the Mox Opal. So that gets us all the mana we need to win the game with Grapeshot. So that's the finish. We have 2 copies of Grapeshot. We cast all these equipment, bounce them all back to our hands. Eventually, we'll get the 2 mana for Grapeshot. Cast the Grapeshot. It's basically uncounterable unless you have some really odd card that like counters everything, like a Mind Break Trap or something. But basically uncounterable, guaranteed win condition. You just put all the copies of it at your opponent's face, and that's how you win the game on turn 2. It's that simple. Just play a Puresteel Paladin, play a Sram, either one, cast all those equipment, get a huge storm count by bouncing stuff back to your hand, and then eventually finish the game with Grapeshot off Mox Opal mana. The rest of the main deck, not much going on. We got 2 Serum Visions, which the deck doesn't really combo off before turn 2. So you're waiting till turn 2 almost always. You can win on turn 1 if you have these weird Mox Opal draws to like play a bunch of equipment, use the Mox Opals to play your Sram, and start comboing off, but mostly turn 2. So turn 1, Serum Visions help set things up. Swan Song, if you wait until turn 3, or even on turn 2 once you start getting your Mox Opals going, is just the best protection spell, because you don't care if your opponent has a bird. That bird isn't relevant because you're winning the game on the spot. In the mana base, we get a bunch of fetch lands, and I know that the deck thinning argument is dubious. Some people really don't like the, oh, it'll thin your deck argument, but in this deck it really matters. There's only 15 lands. You only want 2 lands. One of the ways you can lose is by fizzling when you combo off. As you're casting your 0 mana artifacts, you need to draw more 0 mana artifacts to keep drawing more cards, and if you just draw a string of a bunch of lands in a row, you're going to lose. So in this deck, being able to get a land out of your deck with a fetch is actually super relevant. The rest of the mana base, a couple of blue-white duels, a Horizon Canopy to draw an extra card, couple of planes. In the sideboard, we have stuff to protect our combo. Leyline of Sanctity makes it so we can't get hit by discard. Turn 1 Thoughtseize on Sram or Puresteel Paladin would be one of the easier ways to lose with this deck. Silence helps us force through our combo. Even if our opponent has a counter, they got to spend it on Silence. If they don't spend it on Silence, they can't cast anything. Alien Invasion is a weird one, but it bounces a Puresteel Paladin or a Sram back to our hand to kind of fizzle a Lightning Bolt or Abrupt Decay to kill it. And then Echoing Truth gets rid of opposing Leylines of Sanctity or whatever. So as we draw through our entire deck, we have an out to something that would protect our opponent from the Grapeshot kill, which is our only realistic way of winning the game. There's not really another way we're going to do it. I guess we could put all of our equipment on a Puresteel Paladin and attack, but that doesn't seem very likely. And then Burning Forge Cinder protects our Srams, our Puresteel Paladins from Lightning Bolts, Anger of the Gods, stuff like that. And that is Sram'O's for Modern, and that's our instant deck for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.